那今天机会也很难得哈。那因为 Henri Achten 老师呢，他是受邀到台湾接下来到台中有一个国际研讨会是有关于工业设计就设计领域里面的这个议题。那在这过程中，因为主办的黄英修老师就各位的大学长是我们的第1届博士生那现在他是在高师大在任教。那当然也有登文老师来当张登文老师，那这是之前呢也是建筑所的创所期间在本所任教过的老师，然后他后来呢就到云科大，那因为一直对交大有爱，所以呢都就是也特别的就邀请了Henri 老师来所上跟大家分享。那Henri Achten 教授他的资历其实算非常资深了哈，他在电脑辅助设计，尤其建筑这个领域的其实已经很多年的时间了，应该是说应该是属于元老级的这个老师了。那他在欧洲的整个建筑的这个领域里面，其实也涉猎到好几个国家。首先他在大学就是博士班，他主要研究是花很多时间是在那个Eindhoven在荷兰的安多芬，安多芬就各位知道是飞利浦城市嘛，它也是一个工业城，再加上有点像新竹啦，就是也是有很多这个以工业起家，但是又几乎是一家独大这样子，我们就是台积电独大嘛，对不对？好，那所以他在那个电脑辅助设计这个领域里面呢，其实投入非常的多。那现在是在那个捷克的理工大学的布拉格的校区里面的建筑系，但这建筑系很特别，名称它不是叫建筑系，它叫建筑建模系，叫 Architectural Modeling。但这 Modeling 其实在刚刚我们有聊天的时候有谈到说，他们这其实当初是一个历史因素，因为当初在他们前期的一些营运不好的状况下呢，有一个这个建筑建模的小组的老师，他们接手了这个系去营运，然后后来营运得很好，但是当那个老师退休，他们决定把这名字继续留下来。但是建筑建模后来他们发现很好用，因为它建筑建模会比一般的我们讲电脑辅助设计，你可能听到想打瞌睡，讲又是电脑辅助设计，但他讲电脑这叫建筑建模这件事情的时候，它其实涉及到很多有趣的面向，因为建筑建模它不一定是实体的，也不一定是数位的，它可以实体，可以数位，可以是概念上的，也可以在处理，甚至我们现在的 AI 在做建模，所以有很多的建模它在建立某种的运算或模式啦，甚至你在做理论研究也要做建模嘛，就这样建立一种某种思想的模型，所以他们这个所谓的建筑建模的过程也变成他们现在系的一个特色。但里面当然就是还是会有一般建筑系的规模跟做的研究，但也会再特别强调他们在很特别在建筑建模这方面的这个专长。那他今天也会分享一些他们在学校做的一些研究还有教学。那另外很特别是像各位知道我们所上老师，像林天老师我龚书阳老师，我们都有投入到一些设计的普及教育。还有设计到各种的叫新的跨域教学上面，那刚好这方面的 Henri 老师他也都有从事这方面，但是他这经验就很特别，因为跟台湾状况不同，是属于在捷克这边的特殊的这个环境下，也许大家接下来可以听听看他分享的有关于捷克这边的一些情形。那当然未来如果大家很有兴趣的话，如果你们觉得说对于要往这个欧洲那边去，也许有些机会想去那里去学习或交换那也可以稍微想一下，也许你等一下会有一些问题想要问老师，想了解那边状况，甚至你要问一些业界的情形也都可以。所以大家也许等一下可以把握这个机会。好，那就是后续我就不用讲太多，可是让大家先一个前情提要，大概知道一下我们这个前因后果。好，那接下来呢，我们就把时间交给Henri Achten 教授。OK，let's welcome Professor Henri Achten. Yes. Okay. Oh, you have timer.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. That is a remote.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Let's just try it out.
Next and. Okay. No.
Yeah.
Oh yes.
Okay.
This is next.
Yes. Excellent. Thank you so much for the introduction. I'm quite sure that everything that you said was true. Thank you everybody to join this evening for my lecture. Thank you very much for having me this evening here. It's really my pleasure and my honor to be here. And what will I be talking about this evening? So first I will give a little bit of a background who I am, because I think what you did, let's say, before you went to school is also very important, how you look at the world and what you think is interesting and fascinating. Then I will talk a bit about research that I did, so that you get a little bit of an overview of the things that I did in the past, let's say, 20, almost 30 years. And then I want to talk about an activity that I've been involved in the past 3-4 years, which is, I think, a very nice new kind of science and technology educational model. So without further ado, who am I and who is this guy who is talking to you? So when I was young, I really liked reading science fiction, fantasy, looking at series like Star Trek, or this beautiful series that was developed by Carl Sagan called Cosmos. So as you can imagine, things about the future, things that can be done with technology, I always found very, very inspiring and fascinating, and it really, you know, stimulated my imagination. And then when I went to school, I got in touch with computers. And this was the very first computer that we had in the, what's it called, grade school, I guess, a TRS-80 that you could program with BASIC. And we were this group of high school kids. We would sit every lunch break together and program all kinds of stuff on that computer. And then when we already did this, me and my brother, for a couple of years, then my parents decided, okay, this is serious, we give them a computer for ourselves. And so our very first own computer was the Commodore 64 that you see over there. And at that time, that was really an absolute beast, beautiful multimedia machine with great graphics, great music, and stuff like that. So we started to write programs on that computer. And this was all before I went to university. So when I went to university in the Netherlands, you could basically choose between two schools. The first one is the biggest one, the oldest one, TU Delft, which was established in 1904. And the second one, TU Eindhoven, over here, established in 1967, actually the year when I was born. So it's exactly as old as I am. And because I am a guy who lived here, then of course the most logical decision is to go to this school. So I went to TU Eindhoven. And TU Eindhoven was a quite interesting case at that time, because as you can see, here are the student numbers from the year when the school was created. So quite a lot of students in the beginning. But when I started to study in this year, almost 0 students. Very, very few students. So for the school, that was a catastrophe. Yeah? 4 or 5 students, almost nothing. But for us, it was heaven. We knew everybody, we knew all the teachers, we knew all the students. So it was a really very, very tight community and a very, let's say, pleasurable experience. And at that time, where we were as in the School of Architecture was in this building over there, which was created a couple of years before that. And this is where I spent, let's say, the first years of my architecture studies. When I started to think about, okay, where do I want to graduate, then it's very important to mention this person, John Habrake. John Habrake is the man who actually founded the Faculty of Architecture at TU Eindhoven. So he was also the first dean of the faculty. And later, he actually moved to the United States, and he became the Dean of the Faculty of Architecture at MIT. Now, what is really important of John Habrake is that he founded a group called the Design Methods Group. So he was really into, can we come up with methods, technologies, strategies to create buildings that are better suited for people. So that was the group that he founded in order to investigate this and come up with methods how to do that, and that group was called the Design Methods Group. Another group which was very important for me was the so-called Institute Calibre. And that was basically the institute that dealt with computer-aided design. Yeah, so that comes back to my early fascination with computers and science fiction, and the fact that we had our own computer and we started to code already with that computer. So let's say I landed in the group of design methods, but I was always also looking at the Institute Calibre to see what these guys were doing with the computers. And when I graduated, which was in 1992, then the Calibre Institute was the first institute in the Netherlands that had virtual reality installation at the faculty. Yeah, so now virtual reality is commonplace. You can probably even have it at home. But in those days, you really needed a very big supercomputer and lots of dedicated hardware to work with VR. And I was actually the first diploma student who did his project in VR. And this was the helmet that we used at that time. So these two small glasses that you see over there, I think they had a resolution of something like 120 by 60 for each. It looked terrible. The model was terrible. It was primitive. But everybody was like, whoa, wow, what is happening here? So everybody was really, and me too, of course, completely fascinated with this new technology. Yeah, you can be really inside the model and experience how that is. So that was really a really great experience. And then I started to do my PhD research. I started that in 1992. And for that, two persons are very, very important for that. My two PhD supervisors. On the left, Thijs Baks, who was the professor at the Design Methods Group. And at that time, from the Technion in Haifa, Robert Oxman came over. So he was 4 years guest professor in our faculty. And he was also a pioneer in design computation technologies. And both Thijs and Robert were very, very important for, let's say, my development and my understanding what is research in architecture. And my research in architecture was on sketches and drawings. So you can say, oh, it's a bit strange. Where is the computer? Oh, we will get to that later. But my interest was in sketches. And what we observed was, when you make sketches as an architect, then you put in a lot of knowledge. Yeah? You make your sketch, you have certain ideas, you do certain compositions, and you put all these ideas that you have inside the sketch. And our question was, okay, if you can put this in the sketch, can we then get this knowledge out of the sketch when we look at the sketch, yeah, without asking the architect? So that was our hypothesis. And sketches are made throughout history. Here's an example by Lou Kahn, Peter Eisenman, or Gianluca Palufo. Yeah, and this is like a time period of 60 years. But of course, design drawings have been around in architecture for hundreds and hundreds of years. And when you look at these drawings, then you can identify certain elements. You can identify certain graphical things like squares and circles, and more primitive shapes like this quarter donut, you could say. You can find lines that certify certain axes for symmetry or for organization or for circulation. You can find lines that signify more grids to organize the space, and the ordering of elements in that, and specific elements that you put in there. So what we see is we have a sketch that we can understand as, okay, this is a sketch. It was made by Lou Kahn for the First Unitarian Church in Rochester. and I can look at it and more or less understand it as an architect. And if I look at the most primitive level, what I see around there are very simple graphic elements. And now the question is, can we bridge this? Because looking only at the primitives doesn't really tell you anything about the drawing. But on the other hand, understanding the drawing, if you look at the whole as a holistic, is also impossible. So there has to be something in between that helps you to understand the drawing. So that was our hypothesis, that you have certain elements in the drawing that are organized in a particular way and that have a specific meaning for architects. They are not arbitrary. So they are things like spaces, like circulation, like grids, symmetry lines, structural solutions, and so on. And we said, okay, so there is some level in between the whole sketch and between the most simple elements that have meaning for architects. And we called these elements graphic units. So my task then became, okay, if this graphic unit makes sense, then I should be able to find it in older examples of drawings. So then my task became to analyze many, many drawings, preferably as old as possible, and see if I can find these different kinds of graphic units in the drawings. So here are a couple of examples of the sources that we analyzed, like Serlio from the 17th century, SAR method from the 20th century, Whitcoe, 20th century, Bucher, this is actually from the medieval, but the source is from the 20th century, and so on and so forth. And for each of those, I could identify specific graphic units, as they are mentioned over here. The measurement device that gives you the size of the space. A zoning code that tells you how the building is subdivided in zones. A schematic subdivision that will divide a certain space into particular sizes, and so on and so forth. So with that, I could show that the graphic unit, yes, it does exist. Yes, we can find it in a historical body of drawings. And then came the next step to show how you can use these graphic units to make a design support system and also an expert system that can help you design buildings. So that was the result of my PhD thesis, which I finished in 1997. And the first conference paper that I produced on this, I presented in 1995 at the CAAD conference in Palermo. And further on, I developed this furthermore, and it gave me some 14 further related papers on the same topic. So yeah, after that I was finished. I was a fresh young doctor, and then yeah, what do you do then? Huh? So then I could continue as a postdoc in the group, and the postdoc was in the group of the newly formed Design Systems Group. And the Design Systems Group was actually a merger of the Design Methods Group and the Institute Calibre. So it was really a group focused on new advanced computational technologies. Now, if we look and discuss with architects and we talk about computers, then very often architects say, yeah, but you know, the computer, it's just a tool. Do you think that that's true? Is the computer just a tool? Okay, you might think that I will probably disagree with that. Huh? What is a tool? A tool, if you look at, for example, the carpenter who can make furniture and things for buildings and so on. The carpenter has tools. Yeah, that's obvious. You can't really disagree with that. So here you see the traditional tool set of the carpenter. And tools are things that do exactly certain functions. Yeah, you take a saw, you can saw away a piece of wood. You can phrase profiles in the wood and all kinds of stuff. So here the tool is very, very clear what it does. It does exactly what it's made for. It has a specific shape. It can allow you to do certain things, but it also cannot allow you to do certain things. With a hammer, I can hammer something, but I cannot use a saw to hammer stuff. Yeah, so tools are very, very well delimited things that have a certain function. And they start to work at the moment the carpenter puts it in his or her hands, and then it does something. It doesn't do something by itself. And the computer certainly is not like that. Yeah? It's not like a saw. It's not like a hammer. So when architects say to me, yeah, but the computer is just a tool, then I say, yeah, you don't really know either what a tool is or you don't really know what a computer is. Huh? But it's not just a tool. And then they say, yeah, but it's a really sophisticated tool. It has many, many functions together. And it's more like a Swiss Army knife. And I say, yeah, okay, we're getting close, but that's still not it. Because this is more like multiplication of the same thing, yeah, what we saw over here. So what is this computer? A computer is a really revolutionary new thing. A computer is anything that you can program it for. And that's completely different than instruments that we had before that time. You cannot tell a hammer that now you have to become a saw. And you cannot tell a saw, now you have to become a drill. But for the computer, if you can program it, it will become a spreadsheet, it will become a word processor, it will become a computer-aided design program, it will become Pac-Man, anything that you can program it. And that's fundamentally different from a tool. Yeah? So it's a programmable thing. The moment you can write a program for it, it becomes that. Yeah? And I think that understanding is really very, very important if you want to understand what computers can do for architecture. So what are my big questions for my research? The most straightforward question is, of course, okay, now we have these computers and we have architecture. How do they influence architects and the design process? And that's, of course, let's say the easy question. Eh? That's what we can ask always. We see a new technology and we try to imagine how this new technology influences our, let's say, common practice. But I'm also interested in the other way around. How do we design? What is the design process like? And how would that influence how we are going to program our computer? Yeah, it's not a one-way direction. It's not from the computer to architecture, but it should also be from architecture to the computers. Because we have a lot of knowledge, we know a lot of things in architecture, and these things should be supported by computers. And it should not be dictated only by what the technology can provide for us. So this is what I always try to do when I do research, either myself or with my PhD students and so on. So when you do research, of course you have big ambitions. Why do people want to do research? Is of course because we want to do better design, better architecture, and in the end of the day we want to have a better world. Yeah? And that's of course very good. This ambition is very important to have this ambition, but it's also a little bit unrealistic. There is this very great diagram that was created by Matt Might. It goes like this. Here is the universe of all the knowledge that we have right now. When you start going to school, then you learn a lot of things. Then you go to high school, you learn more things. Then you go to the university, you learn even more things. And then you go to your master and you start to specialize. And what you do when you go to a PhD research is that you try to specialize in your field of knowledge until you reach the limit of what we know now, and you make a very small contribution to extend that knowledge. That's here. So in the total field of all the knowledge that is there, your PhD will do this. Looks like not a lot, huh? But it's very important. It's very important to understand what the implications are. You try to push the knowledge, but of course, it will not become as ambitious as in this. So what is really important, in your PhD research is to try to ask questions that can be answered. Try to be as transparent as possible so that it's clear what steps that you are doing, so that other people can follow these steps as well. And be accountable. Always show why and how you did things. So it's not like educated guess or something. And very important, can we do follow-up research after that? So what's really important at the end of a good research is not so much the results, but really the method, how you came to these results. And very important in science is the science is teamwork. You always build on the results of other people. You go to conferences, you see what other people are doing, you work together in a team, and step by step, little by little, you reach a higher understanding. And of course, you might think that, okay, here is me at the top of the pyramid. I'm using all this knowledge, but most of the time I feel that this is me, the guy in red, not understanding really what is happening, and oh God, it went wrong again. But even that is a learning process, and you can reach a lot of results in that way. So now I'd like to cover a couple of the research projects that we did in the past years with me and my PhD students. And they are in a couple of areas. So I continued in the area of sketches and sketch support. And this was a work done at the Faculty of Computer Science, Slava Pranovic, with a supervisor, Jack van Wijk, who actually used my PhD research to create a very nice sketching tool based on my research. Another research, and this was already in Prague, was done by Katarzyna, who you see in the top right. Here we had the opportunity to work together with ETH in Zurich. And Katarzyna was very much interested in, can we share sketches online? So can people who are in Prague sketch together with people who are in Zurich and develop sketches together? So she came up with a sketching system that works on both Apple, Android, PC, Mac, and that could be shared online. So that was her PhD research. Another part of the research, again back in Eindhoven, was, okay, can we now, if we know this idea of graphic units, can we then come up with a knowledge modeling principle that can actually, let's say, make also for the computer more understandable what is in the drawing. So that was the PhD research that I did together with Jos van Leeuwen over there. And finally, on the sketch area, PhD research that is being done, and which will probably finish next year, by Dalibor. Dalibor is completely in love with digital sketching, and he is actually investigating how digital sketching influences the relationship between the architect and the client. Another area that I was active in for many years is media in general. And the first infrastructure that was developed in Eindhoven was the desk cave system, which you see over here on the left. So the desk cave is like a cave system, but whereas in a cave system you have a very large space of, let's say, 2 by 2 by 2 meters, the desk cave is much smaller. It's a desk, hence the name, on which you have 4-side projection of a 3-dimensional space or object. And we use that to also do VR presentations on that and develop all kinds of applications. And one of the applications that we developed was this one over here, researched by Nicole Segers. Nicole was very fascinated by how architects use words. Yeah, if architects are designing, of course they sketch a whole lot, but sketching is pretty well understood. There's a lot of research on sketches. And she said, well, but when architects are sketching, they are also writing down words. But no one really researches these words, what is happening with that. And what if, when I'm writing down words, when I'm sketching, what if the system could pick up these words and give you 3 associations that are related to these words? Will this help the architect to become more creative or not? So she built this system. What you can see over here, there is a sketching tablet. Here is the architect working on some kind of assignment. Here you see a couple of these products, what they have, and as you can see, they are also writing a whole lot. And she used WordNet, which was let's say, a very large vocabulary. And with WordNet, she would put in these words like public, extrovert, make culture, introvert. And then WordNet would generate words that are related to that, like synonyms, antonyms, other kinds of words. And as the architect is sketching, these words were displayed in front of the architect on the screen over here. And the question was, is this helpful? Do they generate more ideas during the design process? And what we found out was that the answer is yes and no. There is a group of architects that really benefits from this system. They see the words and they become more creative. They generate more ideas than if they don't use this system. But there are also architects on which this had no influence at all. So what happens here? We try to understand that. And we found out that there are two groups of architects which we didn't really realize before we did this research. There are architects who are more verbally oriented, and there are architects who are more visually oriented. And this system helps architects who are verbally oriented. And it doesn't really influence architects who are visually oriented. If you think about it later, it makes perfect sense. But we didn't know this in the beginning, and we found it out actually through doing this, this research. So that was really very nice. Another thing that we started already in the 2010 and later on were collaborative design studios when Katarzyna was already there, so between CTU and ETH Zurich. And man, that was a hassle to set up links between two schools. ETH Zurich had these big supercomputers, and we had an Apple iPad and something like that. And making these connections work, it worked at the end of the day, and it was really a very nice experience. But now, of course, yeah, everybody is on Teams or Zoom, and it's very, okay, easy in citation marks. But we learned a lot from that, how to do these kinds of processes. Another topic that really interests me already from when I was a student in Eindhoven is interactive architecture, or architecture that can change in time to fulfill the needs and the desires of people. And when I got my own design studio in Prague, I worked together with a colleague, Milos Kopčiva, who you see over there, who is an architect specialized in sports facilities, who also had this fascination with can we make sports facilities useful throughout the whole year, whether it's winter or summer or autumn or spring. So we did a lot of projects in which we really researched with our students in the design studio buildings that can dynamically change according to the seasons and according to the activities that people are doing. And since the past 14 years already, I'm really working on this theory of interactive architecture and see if we can come up with a certain theoretical framework for this. And of course, if you want to make something interactive, then the proof of the pudding is in the eating, right? So you have to really make prototypes. Physical prototyping is, of course, the best way how to do that, but it's also very expensive and difficult, and when a certain line doesn't really work out, then it's very hard to correct it, let's say. So virtual prototyping is also very important, using virtual reality to test out interactive scenarios. So a lot of theory development, what interactive architecture is about. So really thinking about the influence of wearables, Internet of Things, and cloud computing, and how all these things are actually converging to make interactive architecture possible in the near future. And one of the most beautiful PhD projects that was realized in this period was this work by Vasilia Abramovic, who built this Tree of Life installation. Here you can see it. It's an interactive installation that reacts both with light and transforming parts of the tree. As you near them, they will collapse and react to you where you are. And this project was done in collaboration with the University College in London, with Henri Achten, who you see over there in the top right, because they really had the tools and the means to actually create this art installation, or this research installation, you could say. So that was really very, very nice. Again, example of collaboration resulting in a truly interactive prototype. Another prototype that we did was done by Katarzyna, and she was interested in how interactive architecture can become something that helps us in our lifestyle. And what she did was, she said, okay, every household in these days has a television. Yeah, so she said, okay, the television can be the nexus of information of what is happening in the house. And she came up with a system where every member of the household is represented by this little robot that you see over here. And we have a racing track, and the robots are competing against each other. And where your robot is depends on how much energy you use throughout the day in the household. And if you are further ahead, it means you are more, let's say, sustainable. You are using less amount of energy. If you use a lot of energy, then you are falling behind. You are not performing that well. And then there is also the overall picture of the total household. If you are using a lot of energy throughout the day, then actually the environment where the robots are racing deteriorates from a very nice natural environment to an environment where the plants are dead and dark and black, and at the end of the day, when you are really very, very bad with your energy consumption, then there are no plants anymore and everything is black and dark. Yeah, so these were very, very simple visual clues that would tell of every member in the household how well they are doing with their energy consumption and the household in total. You could say, yeah, but you can also, yeah, give me a table with numbers. But that doesn't really work well, because people don't understand these numbers. They can't really interpret it. And this is a much more direct visualization. You just look at it, and within 1 second, you know immediately how things are going. But how do you test this? How do you test whether this hypothesis makes sense? So she came up with a very elegant experiment. When do you use the most energy during the day? It's when you are cooking. So she invited a lot of people to come to her house and cook a meal, which is also very practical, because then you don't have to cook yourself. And you get to learn many new recipes. But when the people were cooking, they would see on the display how well they were doing. And some people used a lot of energy, and some people did not. And what was very interesting was the reaction of the people when they saw the immediate visualization of their, let's say, energy behavior throughout the day. Some people became very, very emotional. They said, I made this beautiful meal for you, and I'm being punished with this robot that says that I'm doing very bad, and I'm destroying my environment. And I think that was the most important lesson, was that this way of visualization works. People immediately understood that something was not good. They could improve something. Yeah? And if you would just give them a table, an Excel sheet with the numbers, they would just continue with the way they would do before. And this was a very direct emotional response to what they were doing, how they were doing it, and what the effect of that was. So I think that was a very, very good example of a research installation. So this gives you a couple of examples of things that we did in the past years. And as you can imagine, I mention always the people with whom we work together and the teachers. you can't really do this alone. What is really very important is that you are inside a community of people. So this is our research group some years ago of the people that work together, and everybody is helping each other, and we have meetings and we talk about the work that we are doing. Everybody presents what they are doing. We share ideas. We go to conferences. So that is super, super important to make things work. And also to have fun, of course, also very important. And this is your local community, what you have at your school. And what's also very important is the international community. So I myself am very active in an association called CAAD, which means the European Association for Educational Research in Computer-Aided Architectural Design in Europe. So I'm a member already since 1995, and I was the president of the association from 2005 to 2009. And this community already organizes every year a conference already since 1982. In Delft was the first conference. So going to a conference like that, you really build up your network, you get to know a lot of people, you see what is happening in the field, and that really gives you a lot of inspiration and energy. And now you can say to yourself, yeah, but this guy is talking about research, but I want to be an architect. So yeah, research is not really my thing. So can you combine being an architect and a scientist? The answer, of course, is yes. It was not really an obvious choice, you could say, in the past, but there are more and more architects who are both successful researchers and also successful architects. And I'll give you a few examples. Here's Alvin Huang from the United States. His architect's office is called Synthesis Design and Architecture. And one of the things that he designed was this solar charging station for a car. It's a Volvo, so you should be very happy that it's a Volvo. What is nice about this design, not only that it works to charge the car, but you can actually fit it in the trunk of the car and take it with you. So the whole design process for this was created in such a way that you can actually take it apart and put it in the trunk of your car. You can go to a different location. You build up this charging station and it will charge for you. So beautiful example of being both an architect and a researcher. Another example of a very esteemed great colleague is Andrew Cutlass, whose office is called MATSIS, and he's already for many, many years, decades, already doing research on especially material research, how to create architecture in a different way. And another example, Marc Fornes from France. His office is called the Very Many. And he's really specialized in making super thin metallic structures that can interlock very intelligently, with which he can make very large constructions using a minimum amount of material. Another example, Shayai Bhushan, who is active at Zaha Hadid Architects, at the code section. Dana Tsubkova, who has her office Epiphyte Lab, and she works at Carnegie Mellon. Neri Oxman is probably the most well-known, I guess, architect and researcher who was active at MIT, very well known for her biological research. And finally, example, Jenny Sabin, who has Jenny Sabin Studio, and she also makes very beautiful architectural installations and objects that are also interactive. So yes, you can be an architect, yes, you can be a researcher. And I think it's more and more, let's say, a future path that is increasingly viable, so that it makes sense and it gives you added value to be an architect who can also do research. So that's the part about research. And now I want to change the topic for something completely different. Something that I've been working on in the past 3-4 years. So our university, CTU, you see it over here, is part of a so-called alliance of universities. This is something that was promoted some 5-6 years ago by the then chairman of the European Union, the French President Macron, who said we have to improve our education and research, and we can only do that if we build larger alliances, networks of universities that work together. One of these alliances is called Eurotech, and as the name suggests, it's an alliance of universities of technology. So we have Czech Technical University, we have the Technical University of Munich, we have the École Polytechnique Fédérale de Lausanne, École Polytechnique in Paris, HEC in Paris, which is a more economy school, École Polytechnique, again in Paris, Eindhoven University of Technology, nice for me, my alma mater, Technical University of Denmark, and Tallinn University of Technology, and as an associated partner, Technion from Israel, and the IESE Business School in Barcelona. So this is our alliance of schools of technology and business schools. And what are we doing? The goal of this alliance is to really train, let's say, the engineer of the future. So we are talking, of course, broader than architecture, because all of these schools have many different study programs, not only architecture, so civil engineering, mechanical engineering, chemistry, electrical, and so on. So we are working together across all these fields. And the main model for working together on this is called challenge-based learning. And I will explain a little bit further on how that works. And there are two important components in this collaboration, in this alliance that we are working on. One is called the course catalog. What does that mean? The course catalog means that if I am a student of architecture in Prague, and I want to follow a course from architecture in Eindhoven, then I can do that, and I will automatically get the credits if I fulfill that course. I can also do it in Taltech, I can do it in Denmark, and so on. I can also go to a course that's offered by electrical engineering or civil engineering. It doesn't really matter. The point is that there is this big catalog of courses available for every student from every faculty of all of the universities of the Alliance, and they can follow it, and they will get the credits if they fulfill the courses, which is quite challenging. It sounds very simple, but it's not really simple to realize that. So that's one important part, but the part that's what I am active with in the past 4 years is called Collider. What is Collider? Collider means that we have student teams of about five students. Can be less, can be more. Whoops. I'm pushing too many buttons. And they have to be from at least 3 different faculties. Yeah? So architecture, electrical engineering, biomedical engineering, or civil engineering, mechanical engineering, and nuclear sciences. Yeah, so really mixed teams of students from different faculties, and they work on real challenges from companies. So we invite companies to provide us challenges, and the student teams have to solve it. Example, in Czech Republic you have a beer brewer, and the beer brewer, when they return the bottles, when the bottles are consumed, the bottles are returned, they are washed, yeah, and you have these labels on the bottle. And this waste of the paper labels on the bottles every year is hundreds of thousands of tons of waste paper. And their challenge was, what can we do with this waste paper? So then the teams say, okay, I want to work on this challenge. There we have architects, electrical engineers, mechanical engineers, etc. And they come up with a solution for that. They work on this solution. And they have 9 days to work on that and come up with a solution. So before the whole Collider starts, every company presents their challenge. The students choose the challenge, and then we make the teams of about 5 people per team, and we take care that the students come from different faculties. And here's the example what we had last year. So last year We had the company AVL that wanted to know, are there sustainable strategies for combustion engines for passenger cars? Here's the brewery, Asahi, and for this year they had a challenge which was very nice. If you go through the brewery, you have all this machinery that is running 24 hours a day. And there are people who are specialists that walk around in the factory, and simply by listening to the machines, they can hear if there is a problem or not. But you can imagine, this is very noisy, very loud environment, so it's very tiresome. You can't do this 24 hours a day. So their challenge was, can you automate this? Can you come up with a product that can listen to the machines and detect in time whether a problem will occur? Another challenge was by Capexis, which is a very nice challenge, which is close to architecture. Can you come up with what could the workspace of the future be like? Then we had Mama AI, which is an AI company. They had developed a natural language interface. And can you build a voice bot using our technology? Another company, again, more AI-oriented, Ororo, wanted to have automatic data creation from any scanned book or article. Pre is the local energy provider for Prague, for electricity. And they said, okay, we want to know more about energy communities and how that could work. And finally, Valeo, which is a very large global player on car automation. And they said, okay, we do a lot in car automation. We try to make cars smarter, but our building is rather stupid. Can we make our building smart, like a car? That was their challenge. Yeah, so as you can see, quite high variety of challenges, and students that could choose to work on that. So after this presentation of the challenges, we have a first weekend in which we formation of the teams, and the students have time to investigate the challenge and say, okay, now we need to find information because we don't have enough skills or enough knowledge. So, and this is really the core of challenge-based learning. You get a challenge, and then you try to come up with your own learning path, with your own learning strategy, how to solve that challenge. Yeah, so it's no longer the teacher saying, now you have to do this, now you have to do that, now you go here, now you go there. You leave it in the hands of the students, and they have to create this learning path themselves. Yeah, so you become much more proactive, much more forming your own learning experience. Then there is a so-called free week, which is of course not that free. You can visit the companies if that's necessary for your work. You can do more research, find information on the internet, go to the library, and things like that. So this is the team that took the challenge of the digital ear for the brewery. And after that, a very intensive week, 7 days in a row, 24 hours, well, not 24 hours, in principle 24 hours a day, to really work on the challenges and come up with final solutions for each of the challenges that was chosen. And then the students have their final presentation. The people of the companies are there. They listen to what the students have produced and tell them whether they succeeded or not, or how they like it, or whether there are some weak or strong aspects to the solutions. And very important in this more Eurotech context is that 3 best projects are selected, and these 3 best projects are going to, let's say, a big finale, where the 3 best teams of every university comes together, and they try to be the best of the best. So that's called the Eurotechathon, and that's a follow-up event. But with this, the collider is closed, and 3 teams continue to the Eurotechathon. The Eurotechathon, this year, it was organized in Paris. So all the teams came together in Paris, and the first day we have some socializing events so that all the teams get to know each other. And then the first day, they get a lot of training. Yeah, so there are instructions on soft skills like presentation, how do you analyze, let's say, what the client would need, and how can you focus your solution even better to the client. There was a very nice workshop on inclusivity, peer review sessions where student teams from one team would look at the work of another team and give feedback about how they understood it and whether something could be improved. And of course, lots of time for preparing the final presentation. So here you see all the students together at the introduction of the session, and here a little bit more outside. So you have the teams from TU Munich, here are we from Czech Technical University, Taltech over here. Yeah, so all the teams together trying to be the, let's say, the best of the best. And then the final day for the finale, it has a couple of parts. So first, very short pitches by each team in which they very shortly introduced their solution for a jury. And then there was a market. So every team had a small stall, a table, where they could then explain in more detail questions of the jury members about their solution. And then that would wrap it up, and the jury would announce the three winners of that round of the Euroteckathon. And this year there were three major topics. There was a team that would work on nature, a team that would work on people, and teams that would work on technology. So for each of these categories, the best teams were selected. So this is how Collider Euroteckathon works, the mechanism. So what does that mean? I think first of all, this idea of challenge-based learning, I think is very important, and a different way of teaching and a different way of learning. Putting the initiative more towards the student, making them understand, okay, it's no longer the case that the teacher is the only source of information and knowledge. That's of course something that was true in the 19th century, but today we are in a network society, and knowledge and information is everywhere. And I can pull up all this knowledge very simply on my mobile phone, on my tablet, on my computer. So I can also generate a lot of knowledge. It's not only the teacher anymore, it's not only the school anymore. And giving students a challenge really gives them then this opportunity to really to design your own learning path, to come up with what do I need to know, what skills am I lacking, so what do I need to learn throughout this process in order to solve this challenge for myself. And another very important aspect is that you work very intensively with practice. So it's no longer, let's say, pure academic tasks or exercises that you need to do, but you really learn to work with a company, understand what are their goals, what are their needs, and to come up with a solution that really helps that company. A very important other aspect is that you learn how to work in teams. When you graduate, you will always work in a team. Whether you're an architect, whether you are a mechanical engineer, whether you are a software engineer, you will always work in teams. But we almost do not teach that in our schools, in our education. So with this approach, there are of course many other approaches how you can do that, but with this approach you learn how to work together in teams. And a part of the engineering knowledge that you will get, let's say, from your traditional education, you also get a lot of soft skills. How do you negotiate between your members in the team? If there are conflicts, how do you solve conflicts? How do you persuade a client or get the right information from the client? All these are more soft skills that have to do with negotiation, explaining things, asking the right questions, and stuff like that, which is not part of, let's say, traditional engineering education. So I think these are very interesting trends in modern education in science and technology, not only for architects, but I think for the whole field of science and technology. So that's what I would like to talk about for that part. And then one final thing that I would like to talk about, and that is, I already mentioned CAAD, but there is also CAAD. What you can see over here, there are a couple of sister organizations, Acadia, and here they are in chronological order. Acadia is the oldest, then CAAD, CAD Futures, CAAD, CAAD, and ASCAD. And these are associations that cover computer-aided architectural design, research, and education for a particular region in the world. So Acadia is, let's say, for North America, CAAD is for Europe, CAD Futures is a little bit worldwide, because they are not really regionally bound. CAAD is for Asia, CAAD is for South America, and ASCAD is for the Arab countries. And CAAD is coming in 2 years to this school. That's great, eh? That's really great. Why is this great? It's not only for researchers, it's also great for you, the students, because you will meet the stars. Who is this star? Do you know him? This is? Anyone? Come on, guys. You must know it, eh? You must know this guy. Okay, Achim Menges, who is the director of the ICD in Stuttgart. So he's the guy responsible for all these beautiful pavilions that you see in the past 10, 12 years, using new technologies like carbon fiber or CNC-produced panels. So he's the guy responsible for all that research. And for example, he had a keynote presentation this year at CAAD in Cyprus. So, of course, not only the keynote speakers are interesting, also all other people who are at that conference are interesting. So that's why you should go to that conference when it's already here to meet these people. And of course, the most important is when you are already there, ask questions, talk to other people, get to know them, see what they are doing, what is, what are their successes, what are their failures, are they doing things similar as you? You can learn a lot from that. And of course, not only from the stars, but everybody else who is in the room. So super, super important and super, let's say, inspiring that CAAD is coming here to this school in 2 years. So yeah, be there, join the conference and have fun and learn a lot and ask questions. So that's it from my side. I regularly put stuff on LinkedIn, especially about research. If you think that's interesting, you can find me on LinkedIn for my articles. And that's it. Thank you for your attention. Shishe. Almost 1 hour.
那个各位刚刚看到那个 LinkedIn 的连结哈，赶快连一下这样子。如果你们跟我连这个 first degree 的话 ，that your second degree to Henri, and then after you click it, you become the first degree connection with Henri. Yes. Okay. And for the conference, because in our program, mostly is MS student. They are going to participate in conference mainly. Although we are encouraging the students from MR2, they can also participate in different kinds of conference, not only computer, they might have conference in architecture, in design, in urbanism, in theory, so many kinds of conference. But for MR1, I think that's one thing after I listen to your talk. In terms of architectural education, I think that's the long term. It's not a long time, but in past decade, in 10 years, we already heard people talking about we should change the architectural education to in order to it's like response to the industry and to the trends, right? So I just wondering, from your experience of this kind of a competition you just mentioned in the last part, you mentioned that a student from different backgrounds. I wonder, have you noticed the student from architectural or those students collaborate with architectural students? Is there anything different or any potential you see from their work or their way of collaboration, and the impact of the background of architecture could contribute to their work? I think that's one thing probably I would like you to share to our students, that the knowledge and skill of architecture could contribute to the world in different ways, rather than just only in building architecture. I think that's the one thing I'm quite curious.
Definitely, thank you for that question. So the teams that had architects with them, you could see that their results were more well developed as a whole. So for example, one team that were working on this digital ear, and also in earlier years for the waste problem, when there is an architect in the team, you see that the result not only considers the technical part of the solution, but it becomes more, it's a little bit subjective, but it becomes more balanced. It tries to take into account many more things than only the technical solution for a particular thing, that maybe it works, but people will not be able to use it. And very often having the architect in the team makes sure that the product connects better to the people who need to use it. Mm-hmm. So it's like this continuous, this alarm bell going on. Yeah, but does it make sense? Can people understand how they use it? Are we really solving the right problem? You could say let's say the classical engineers very easily get sidetracked to very narrow technical solutions, and they forget, let's say, the human aspect about it. And very often having that architect in the team makes sure that this rather more holistic understanding of the solution is also important. And that we not only focusing on the technical solution, but something that as a whole works better and also looks better. One of the girls that we had in these projects, she described it very simply. I just make sure that it looks pretty. And that sounds very simple, but it's not. Again, it was a project where two teams were working on the same thing. If I recall, it was about a company that was working on recycled waste, and to come up with a database of what companies produce as waste, and then using that database to help the recycling company to get an inventory, what can we make with these categories of waste. And we had two teams. One team had an architect, the other team did not. And as she said, I want to make things pretty, but it meant that the whole interface, how the project was conceived, was much more mature, much more well developed than the product of the team that only had the engineers. They could do the same thing, technically speaking. They could browse the website, the internet. They could build a database of all that things. They could show the quantities and stuff like that. But the team that had the architect in the team, it looked better. It functioned better. It was nice to use it. Yeah, and that's really important to get a good result. So this less emphasis on hard engineering aspects, but understanding better the holistic part was really important contribution from the architecture students. And then when you see how the architecture students function later on in their own learning process, so one of One of them is now my diploma student. I can see that he is much more mature as an architect. He can understand much better what kind of information he needs to find, how to integrate this information in his diploma project. So I see that he has grown as a much more mature designer thanks to being part in the Collider project, even though the Collider project was not immediately directly associated with architecture. Yeah, so it's not like you can put definite numbers on it and make it quantifiable, but you see a difference. It really has a positive impact.
Thank you. Yeah, I want to ask if you have anyone to ask question, curiosity. Yeah. When you are thinking, I want to keep continue my question. I also ask about the because you mentioned that the Horizon project and also the competition, because that actually it's happened in Europe around several schools. From your understanding, is there any it doesn't mean similar, but for if we have students interested in to go to ZEC or go to any school, means network, or our university or program have interest to collaborate in certain project. In terms of your knowledge, like Horizon, because for faculty we know a little bit, but for most students they have no idea what Horizon project is, but I remember that it's actually welcome international-wise to join into the platform, right? So if you have any information on some certain way that we might have chance to do that, maybe we can provide some idea to student or faculty.
Yeah. Well, definitely. As you can imagine, I'm a big fan of this kind of collaboration. I think it's super important. I don't believe that one university can solve all the problems, no matter how much money they have. Of course, I'm being very pragmatic because in Prague we don't have any money at all. So for us it's really important to be in an alliance like this with very wealthy partner universities. But even then, I think collaboration is super important. Building your network, getting to know other people, getting to know other regions is so important to develop yourself, to understand that you need to work together to solve problems. So any potential collaboration with anyone, I will always welcome it and always try to see if that is possible, for sure. And getting this funding is not easier. It's very hard to get European money or some other funding agency to get this money. And you fail very often. I think if I just count the number of years that I spent writing research proposals that I did not get, then it's probably longer time than anything else that I did. Yeah, but don't be disappointed. Yeah, always keep trying. There will always come up an interesting potential partner with which it then will succeed. Yeah, but chances are low, of course. But you have to keep on trying.
I may provide some information to students. I may switch to Mandarin. 同学就是说，刚刚我们谈到有一些计划，可能大家其实完全不熟悉啦。那有些可能是老师们去申请，像我们刚讲那个地平线计划，那 Horizon 计划，那是欧盟，它欢迎全球的国家都能够加入去参与欧盟的一些比较国际型的一些研究计划。那大概是从老师的地方去申请，然后如果有申请到，那同学就有机会加入这种计划去做这种跨国的研究合作。但是那个计划基本上当然有难度在，因为它可能是要在欧盟有一个国家的 partner， 再加上我们这里的一个 partner， 两边要共同去投，然后都成了都 OK 了以后，那才会形成一个计划。那另外就是，当然这种跨国计划当然就看老师来做，但他以同学的角度的话，如果我们有兴趣，但我们以本所的角度，我们都很鼓励同学，你们有机会往外面去闯，尽量去闯。那重点是那个平台在哪里？那如果你们大家需要资讯，当然可以找老师。但另外就是说， 在刚刚那个像 Henry 提到的那些合作计划里面，当有些像他们刚刚那种跨理工学校之间的这种竞赛，有些实际上就是有限这些学校。你说我们现在交大想加入加盟，可能也是不在他们的叫做游戏规则里面。但是如果你今天有机会申请到，比如交换或者什么事，因为我们学校签很多那个姐妹校或者是能够去加入的，那你可以用1学期的或1年的方式去交换。那有的学校是你缴台湾的学费，你就可以去那边念，或者你再补一些钱要补。那甚至你到德国，有些学校这免学费也几乎是免学费。但这种机会有时候是这样，就说这个机会，你要看透过学校的管道或你自己申请，有时候那个门槛是很不一样的。像有时候啊，像我们之前像林天老师，我们去年有同学申请那个实习的那个经验是，大家很紧张，哇，这个用得很急，就发现其实没有什么人申请同学要去的那些国家，所以反而好像机会反而是对蛮畅通的。那只是说有时候那个管道在那里，大家没有去 try， 或我们有时候没有试着去突破看看，你不晓得，所以有时候反而你去试，你就觉得那管道还挺 OK。像包含学校我们有签那种姐妹校的话，那意味着什么呢？就是说你其实姐妹校他们就不是用他们自己学生的申请的 qualification 在看你去重审，基本上当时很 friendly 的角度，你只要我们这边送出去，大家就是基本门槛过，大概就 OK 了。因为基本上，譬如说他们在面对就是我们这个学校已经入学的学生嘛，所以等于说已经到某种的 quality 了，所以他们基本上就是一个基本的资格审，剩下就是人数，你可能要去跟同样去申请这个学校的人去竞争。所以同样以这样条件下呢，其实我觉得这种机会你有机会到那些学校里，就有机会碰到那样的计划。那其实当然去有很多，不一定是有做那样的计划，有很多的机会啦。好像我们很多出国同学，通常都说啊，我出国后以后要干嘛，后来都会改啦，因为你到国外之后，你的视野就整个打开了。你视野打开以后，你就有新的决定、新的看法。所以基本上你出国，就等于是你是准备要被大环境，你会迎接新的改变。基本上我们希望大家出去也是因为这样，就是我们不想你们只是用旧的想法一直在想说，好像我高中就已经想好我以后开业要干嘛这样子，那个都不准了哈。那你太多机会是要出国看才知道。那像 Henri Achten 教授，他因为很资深，所以他的网络其实相对也是非常的宽的。那你们在运用资源上面要非常的聪明，那你要把人也当成资源嘛，也就是说，今天你们认识了 Henri Achten 老师，那意味着以后你要找他你就容易，因为大家说，我是哪学校学生这样，会有那种比较这种人情世故上面的，其实在全球都很行得通。不是说西方就比较不重视人情，超重视的，好不好？超重视的。那像我们在国外的经验都是啊，你讲说，我过去谁是谁认识，说原来是谁啊，哇，那就突然之间变好朋友了这样子。但是以这样来讲，只是一个很好的开始啦，就你跨过那个门槛，那接下来你还是认真的要做好你自己的事情。只是说，这些有时候不是大家想象的这么困难或不可能。那我知道很多同学会考虑我语言没有那么好啊，谁那么好？跟各位讲，你们现在看到很多很厉害的学长姐们，当年都一样 ，OK。但是你只要去试，说实在，语言是最小的问题，你最不用担心的问题。像你们只要想去看日剧，就会把日语学好，就会讲听懂。想要听懂看韩剧，你就会去把韩语听懂一点。你这种动力都有啊，你出国，你要把书，或者你要去做好事情，你语言自然就该解决就解决掉，那是最不用担心的。你要担心是别的事情。老实说，大家每次在说老师我语言不大行，我觉得那是人生最小的事情。对啊，现在还担心语言的问题。对，应该是说，对。Yeah, we're talking about usually students are afraid of the language barrier. I say that it's the least problem you should worry about. 各位以后我先教大家讲一个，就是你们要怎么克服语言的障碍。就是说，你不要为学语言，那是完全没有用的。你要要做那一件事情，而那件事情需要用到这个语言，你要解决是那个问题。OK， 所以刚讲嘛，你为了看漫画、看动漫，你学日语， 就很 OK。但你如果为了学日语，通常没有太 OK。你还有一个比较更远、更大的那个 goal 在那边。所以你要把你的学习目标这样定，你那个叫顺便学的东西，才有办法顺便都学会。一样。所以是鼓励大家。那我刚刚讲那么多，就是要让大家想问题，有没有要问的？对啊，林天老师会觉得说这个人是很会讲一堆有的没有的。刚刚这很有用，好不好？对。Is there anything special when a student want to go to study in Czech?
If you want to study in Czech Republic, CTU, we first need to check if we already have an agreement, Erasmus agreement, but probably, yeah, but probably not. If you have to ask this question, then
we have to ask the international
yeah,
office.
Yeah.
How about in general? Because we do have association with other schools in Czech Republic.
Yeah. So in general, so if there is a bilateral agreement, then it's no problem. Then there is already a contract going on, and you can go to a school with which your school has a contract to accept students for that. If that is not there, then things become a little bit more tricky, because then it more or less depends if you can find some financing, either from here or in a bilateral program, maybe on the government level, or maybe some association that looks at bilateral programs. But you have to do a little bit more work. Then it's not like already arranged for you. Nevertheless, these things do exist. The potential is there, but you have to find it. That's the hard part.
So you, in a way, there is financial sponsorship. The other is academic sponsorship.
Yes. Yeah. And so about the language, chances are, if you meet someone on international level, that for them, English is also not their first language. Unless you meet an Englishman or an American, then okay, they talk English very easily, or nothing else, of course. But you meet Italians, you meet people from Singapore, you meet French people, you meet people from South America, and they all have troubles with English. So it doesn't really matter. Simply start to talk, and then things will be all right. You start to communicate, and it will be okay. You have a beer together. Communication will be even easier.
That's right.
So, but I understand. In the beginning, it's very weird. And you think, I don't really know how to say it. So I rather say nothing. And that's not good. Simply try it. And people are always happy to react and give answers.
Actually, a student right now is far better than us. That's like 20 years ago. 其实你们英文都比我们以前好非常多了。好，这个英文不用再谈了。对，没有问题了吗？没有问题了。记得回去赶快加 LinkedIn. That's very important, as I mentioned before. 在那个研究方法课程，就是其实你建立你的专业人脉还挺重要的。对 Okay, so after tonight, probably there are some students who are clicking in LinkedIn.
Yes.
Connect with you.
Feel free to share this presentation with.
Oh, sure. Okay. Great. Thank you so much. Okay. 好，那我们就谢谢 Henri Achten 老师。Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.